I'm Bea.
And I'm Sam.
And we're two best friends who like to talk shit about smut, wingspan,
and sometimes books.
Welcome to our author spotlight, where twice a month we sit down to talk about our favourite books.
Completely spoiler free and the perfect way to bump up that TBR.
As we said, welcome to our first ever author spotlight here at A Pod of Smut and Wingspan. We can't believe this has started so soon because we thought this would be a 2025 thing, but here we are, season 1 of our author spotlight episodes.
So exciting!
So,
and, obviously we won't do this every episode, but I just feel like we have to say a huge thank you to every single person who took the time to submit their books. The response we had was completely overwhelming, and if we didn't get to your book, we're sorry. We will try to get to it in season 2, but we just didn't expect the number of submissions that we had, but we are so grateful.
This is what happens when you girl boss a bit too close to the sun, and we sort of definitely just thought, maybe get like a handful, enough to do like a season, and we can reopen it in the new year or like in 6 months and we'll go again. And like we said I think we mentioned it in an episode, a main episode, we had enough for like 3 years worth of submissions, which is just wild.
Mental.
So our scheduling for these, just to we're going to do a bit of housekeeping to start this episode. We won't get this every episode. This one might be a little bit longer than the rest, but our plan is these are going to be short and sweet, 20 to 30 minute episodes, spoiler free. Like we say in the intro, we're going to remind you again, so you don't have to have read these books to listen. The whole point of these episodes is that we can recommend the absolute creme de la creme of indie small author romantasy, that fantasy and romantasy. That's what these are for. So our scheduling is that I cover a book and Sam covers a book each month. We're both going to be in these episodes, but the way it's set up is that I read one, Sam reads one. That's the best way we could get through, 14 books in season 1 that we're doing. I will always be at the beginning of the month and Sam will always be at the end of the month, and we are going to be releasing on the first and last Monday of every month. So that just gives you a rough scheduling. So that's our scheduling. First Monday of the month, last Monday of the month. Perfect way to start and round off your month. 2 books a month to add to the TBR, and season 1's going to run until April.
Yes.
And we'll reopen the submissions probably a little earlier than that, probably Feb, March time for season 2, and we'll go from there. So these episodes are going to have a bit more structure than our main channel episodes do. So they're not going to be super scripted. That's never going to be something that we do, but these are recommendation episodes and they are spoiler free. So I'm going to, as the person who's doing the first book of the month, I'm going to run through the basics of the book, what you can expect, tropes, any trigger warnings. We're going to talk about pricing, where you can find the book, a little bit about the author. And then the person not reading the book, aka Sam in this week's episode, is going to fire off some quick fire questions just to round out the end of the episode. So our first book of our first ever run of the author spotlights is A Vermilion Curse by DC Guevara, who is an indie author, and this is their first ever release. And I'm just going to run you through the blurb or the synopsis of this book, and then we'll go into the content warnings, where you can find it, and the tropes, like we said. A Vermilion Curse, former scholar turned mercenary Rysand Valafar rummages through a ransacked city for banned religious texts, seeking information about ancient and dangerous magic. While investigating an abandoned temple, he encounters a threatening woman with a price on her head high enough to fund his research. Wanted by the Crown for her involvement in the dead king's occult studies and a menacing cult, Cressida Benwell searches for a way to get rid of a brand that scars her in the besieged capital in order to make her grand escape. An encounter with a demon leaves her in bonds. When this unlikely pair of opposite personalities discover that they have similar objectives relating to the outlawed religion, they agree to work together to find the place where all dark magic stems from. This proves to be a difficult task when their journey is tracked by a war commander set on bringing them justice, a family they must escort back to a circus, and the growing tension rising between Cressida and Rysand. Serving as a distraction from their individual goals, in the midst of shifting rulers, villages, disarray, and a scattered court of decadence, falling in love was never on the cards.
Ooh.
So the best way I can describe A Vermilion Curse in my like simple terms is it's romantasy through and through, but it's also the probably for anybody who loves D&D, for anyone who loves like RPG games, any fan of Baldur's Gate, any fan of Critical Role, this is the romantasy book for you, A Vermilion Curse. Like, but what's great about it is that it also is such a romantasy through and through that like romantasy lovers can love it. So I actually think that was what was really refreshing about it, is that it's a quest in the way that it's set out. So it's like your main characters have got an end goal, I guess. And obviously there's going to be like derailment on the way, but like it's a physical journey, which I'm sometimes in two minds about. I've read some physical journey books that I love, and then I've read some that I've not loved because I find the pacing too slow.
Yeah.
This is not one of them. The pacing in this is quick. It is a quick read. It doesn't stop. It's like goes from the get-go, and it's just so enjoyable. I am just going to quickly mention some of the content warnings before we go ahead. So the content warnings for A Vermilion Curse: demons, drug usage, alcohol consumption, aphrodisiac usage, sex pollen trope in chapter 18, which we'll get into in a hot minute, general fantasy violence, blood magic, and dark magic rituals near Act 3. So you can find this book on Kindle Unlimited, which we love.
Woo!
Snaps for Kindle Unlimited. Or alternatively, it is £12.25 British sterling, which will obviously vary depending where you are, or for a paperback on Amazon, which again, absolute steal for an indie author.
Agreed.
And the author also has a book box available on their website to place an order with. There's a form to fill out, and I believe the cost is about €59. But that is like a big bundle box. You get a signed copy, you get a lot of goodies with that. So yeah, all of those, I mean, obviously the book box is a bit of an indulgence, but still I think really reasonably priced when you consider what you get. So yeah, that's where you can find A Vermilion Curse. It's on Amazon. The author's on Instagram, you know, it's everywhere. And then we're going to quickly go into tropes. So tropes in this book that you will find are reluctant allies to lovers, so a little different from enemies to lovers. A bisexual FMC and a demi MMC. Ooh. Battle couple, so a couple that battles together, which honestly is literally like the hottest thing ever. Criminals on the run, sex pollen trope, which again, like I said, we'll get into in a second, and bat-cat dynamic.
Ooh.
So I'm going to do bat-cat dynamic first because I didn't know what that was before Googling it, before I get into sex pollen trope, because I know that's the one Sam is chomping at the bit for me to tell her about. Bat-cat dynamic is basically Batman and Catwoman dynamic, as in like he's the like, you know, vigilante, like dark in the night brooding type, not always necessarily like male, but that type.
Yeah.
And then Cat is obviously like the assassin-y sort of Catwoman spy, like seductress. So Rysand and Cressida 100% fall into these genres. Obviously Rysand being, I would assume, the bat. He also has wings, so like, you know,
we love a man with wings.
We do, obviously, hence by the title of this podcast. And they are bat wings, just to confirm. Well, bat-esque wings. He's a demon, but they're bat-esque. Woohoo! A blue bat boy. He's blue. Yeah, I know.
Shut your mouth.
With horns. Anyway, I'm losing track here. And yeah, Cressida is like red-headed, like voluptuous, like sensual, like sassy, just everything you love from an FMC, sorry.
You do this all the time.
What, the MMC and FMC?
Yeah.
I know, I can never fucking remember which around they are. So yeah, that's kind of them in a nutshell, without, like we said, without any spoilers. And then this sex pollen trope, because I know you are chomping at the bit to know what this is. So again, this is not a spoiler for the book. It's just to let you know the tropes in it. So sex pollen trope, I didn't pre-read what it was before I got to the scene because I wanted to like experience it real time. It's not what I expected it to be. So I was kind of expecting it to be more like knotting, as we see in books like Bride or the Omegaverse, where it's to do with like the bells and whistles that everybody has. It's not. The bells and whistles between Rysand and Cressida are like they would be, well, thus far, between two human people. But sex pollen trope is basically when somebody gets infected. Doesn't always have to be pollen, but some kind of substance that makes them horny, and then subsequently leads to that.
So like taking Viagra and then doing the dirty.
No, because it's not like, oh, I'm going to take this to stimulate me. It's like an accidental thing.
Like brushing the middle of the lily and then you get covered in like orange stuff.
Yes, but it isn't always like actual pollen. So again, not a spoiler, but in this instance, the FMC and the MMC, up until this point, obviously there's loads of tension because that's what we want for romantasy. There's yearning, burning, but they haven't done the deed. But out of their control, they both get forced to drink something called ambrosia, which is like a magical substance in this world that causes people to be super duper extra horny.
And then they do the deed?
Well, you'll have to read it and find out, won't you?
Love it.
But yeah, so that is so sex pollen trope, like, obviously refers to pollen probably in the early first, but it doesn't always have to be like pollen. It can be like liquid, it can be like a spell, it can be other things.
It's just like accidental drugging.
But also I just need to preface, like, with the content warnings in this, even though both of the individuals it is accidental, the act is still very consensual. So I just want to preface, like, there's nothing unconsensual in this, like that it would have been put in the trigger warnings. So yeah, that in a nutshell is A Vermilion Curse. I thoroughly enjoyed this. As far as book 2 is concerned, I think from when I checked on the author's like Instagram page and updates, it's coming. We don't have a date, we don't know when, but it is going to be a book 2. Book 1 ends on huge cliffhangers, so like there's got to be a book 2. I ate this up. I literally read it in like 2 days, devoured it. Do you want to do quick fire questions?
Yes. You ready?
I'm ready, Freddie.
Okay. What was your favourite part of the book?
I kind of mentioned it, but there's a lot of like demon, religious, occultist kind of like themes in this, and the two main characters are on their own individual paths to like learn more about this demon religion, and that was like my favorite thing, is like all the world building and lore around this like demon religion. Did
you race to the end, or was it more of a slow burn?
Kind of a bit of both. Like I'd say like 70% I just plodded along at a really enjoyable pace. It's the type of book that, like, you know, if you put it down mid-chapter, it's not like, oh, like I've got to focus to pick this back up again. Like, it's such an easy read. So I plodded along at a very reasonable pace, I'd say for 70%. But then when the going gets going in the last like 20%, I was like bang, bang, bang. Like I literally read, I think when I went to bed last night, I was on like 65%, 70. So I literally read like 30% just this morning in one sitting, because I was like, woo, eat it up.
Love that. Which scene has stuck with you the most?
Oh, the sex pollen trope scene is so good, so enjoyable. I was like, every time you kind of you think you're gonna get it, I was like, is this it? Is this it? Is it? And you're like, no, is this it? Because there's so many like yearning, burning scenes. But then when you get that payoff, like, oh, such an enjoyable scene.
I'm so excited. Would you want to read another book by this author?
100%. The way that they write is so enjoyable, and like I said, an easy read. It is in the third person, but it like switches between Cressida and Rysand's POVs. Sometimes even like when I say mid-scene, not mid-scene, but with it being in the third person, it allows you that kind of more of like a bird's eye view of the scene. And I actually found that really enjoyable. The way that this author writes it is really readable. Sometimes I don't love third person. It's my least favourite POV to read, or tends to read, but I love this.
Love that. What surprised you most about the book?
I think that even though it was like a quest, the main plot line is getting from A to B, or kind of A to B, with a lot of A.1, A.2s in between it. And I generally don't enjoy that kind of setup, because for me, as soon as I know that the end goal is a physical place, every time there's like a hindrance, I'm like, oh, come on. I'm such an impatient person that I'm like, come on. But I actually really enjoyed it in this, because every time it got like derailed, it made sense, and it's so quick paced and so enjoyable. There's no fluff in the best way. There's no fluff. It didn't feel like I was like, oh, come on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely love that. How did your opinion of the book change as you read it?
I don't think I expected it to be, one, maybe quite as like political as it was. It's not too much politics, but there's a good amount of politics. The dynamic between basically the way the kingdom is set up is, and again, this is not a spoiler, but like the main king has just been assassinated and his brother is now coming in to like take over and be like, what the fuck's going on? My brother's been assassinated. There's a lot of politics around like their relationship and also like their beliefs in this demon religion. And that's really interesting. The way that they set up like the gods, the demon religions, the other worlds, super interesting. And I think a lot of it, and again, I'm not a D&D fan, right? So probably a lot of this was like, you know, and not in like I didn't understand, but there's probably a lot of like really lovely nods that just don't resonate with me.
Yeah.
But I actually still really enjoyed how quite like D&D like it felt. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was very like medieval, like let's go on a quest, but I just loved it.
I suppose really authentic to the trope then. If you're going in as like a D&D fan, then it's authentic.
Yeah, like if people love Baldur's Gate and Critical Role, like I watch Critical Role purely because I'm in love with Matthew Mercer. Like that's the only reason why I'm in love. Watch it. Like I don't understand anything that's going on, but all of the cast of Critical Role give me bisexual panic, and I'm madly, deeply in love with Matthew Mercer. You can clip this, put it out there on the internet, I don't care, tag him in it because I am so in love with him. But so I have like very basic knowledge of like D&D and how it works. I'm not the best, but yeah, it's still like I feel like I can see that people who obviously are D&D players would love this.
How does the book's title work in relation to the book's content?
Well, so Vermilion, right? I'm gonna have to Google this. I should have Googled this. Is it a colour?
Yeah.
I think it is, isn't it? Yeah, vermilion red is it's a colour. It's like bright red, right? So I thought for like the vast majority of the book, it's reference to Cressida because she has like this big, huge, like wavy red sensual hair that like just hot, right? Yeah. So I always thought that that's what the reference of like A Vermilion Curse was to. Actually, in the very, very end scenes, you get like a much bigger payoff for the title, which I wasn't expecting. Like I'm fine with the title. It doesn't have to be that like clever. Yeah. It doesn't have to reference the book that well, but it was actually really clever. You get a big payoff for that in the end and really enjoyed that.
Ooh. Did this book remind you of any other books?
So when we were like writing these questions, I was trying to think about this, and like I really struggled to think of one, but not in a bad way. It's genuinely because I don't think I've ever read anything like it. I will say from the kind of dynamic and the journey aspect of like the two main characters starting somewhere and journeying to another location, the sort of dynamic between the two of them, it's kind of similar to The Witch Collector by Carissa Weeks, which I read the first one. I've not read the other three, but it's very similar to the first one. But actually, like apart from that, not really, but in a really good way. Like some of the dynamics of them as personality, like it's definitely Grumpy Sunshine 100%, but they're actually very unique, and the whole like religion and their relationship between the religion and their like purposes is actually really unique. So in the best way, I don't really have any other books to like reference it to.
Oh, exciting. So I take it you will be reading book 2.
100%. Eat it up. Give it to me now. I need
exciting.
It. I would say if you want a nice, refreshing palate cleanser after some intense reading, but still, because for me, like you always talk about this palate cleansers, right? Like you did Pumpkin Spice Cafe, didn't you?
Yeah.
I can't not read fantasy. So I struggle with palate cleansers because sometimes they're not very cleansing, and that isn't a negative.
No.
But for me, I will say this is like the best palate cleanser if you've just come off like a heavy, you know?
Yeah. That's all my questions, unless you have anything else to add.
Nope, short and sweet. That's what these episodes are. So go check out A Vermilion Curse. Go follow the author on Instagram, and once you read it, leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads. They're an indie author, so that's kind of the main point of these episodes, is to support where we can. We've had a bit of back and forth with them on Instagram. They're such a nice person, and highly recommend this. And honestly, like, I think the perfect way to start our recommendations.
Yay!
So join us I say next week. It's not next week. Well, we will be here next week.
Yeah,
but
so we will be back Wednesday with our usual weekly episodes on the main channel, and then the last Monday of the month will be our next author spotlight, which will be Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider.
which is Monday the 28th of October. So just mark your calendars for the next author spotlight that will be coming out.
Yay!
Yay! Cute.